Very simply put, one of the great needs, maybe certainly one of the greatest needs in our world is for us to know one another, to know what's really going on in the world around us, and to feel a commonality of need and purpose with other people, people of different walks of life, other nations, other ethnic backgrounds, economic status different, philosophies and religious. We need to find a common bond with the rest of humanity, and the documentary allows us to do that. I think it's the most effective way of connecting with another person's life.
If you're talking about
dirty filmmaking?
Yeah, like the guerrilla filmmaking, right? Down and dirty filmmaking. It's a different thing, and there's a way to talk about both of them. They're two different approaches. Like we work with a professional cameraman and a sound person, and we're four to a crew, and so we're not just one person with the camera. We're more intrusive. The other approach, because I'm working now with somebody who's like a one-man band. She's just shooting the whole thing herself. She's, got a mic on the camera, and she's getting an intimacy. She's getting a level of intimacy with these people where that it's much, much harder to get when there's more of you and there's a bigger camera and yada, yada, yada. So at the same time, she's missing a lot of stuff. There's a lot of bad camera moves in it. It's much more difficult because she is not all those four things. She can't be directing, producing, shooting, and a camera person and be really, really good at all of them. But she's sacrificing that and getting something different, which is an immediacy and an intimacy that, goes pretty far.
I watch movies. I study technique. I study cuts. I study how sound is used. I study why they cut from a medium shot to a wide shot. I study why they use over the shoulder. That's the first thing about wanting to be an editor. The second thing about how do you become an editor is then after you sort of have this, because you got to have a passion for it. After you have this passion for movies, then you got to find somebody who's going to say to you, hey, Anthony, boy, you really like movies, huh? Well, come sit with me when I edit, and I'll show you how I do what I do. And then maybe I'll teach you how to do something.
Filmmakers and artists, musicians, painters, sculptors are sometimes the best people to do business because we're creative. And especially when you don't have a lot of resources, you got to creatively figure out how to get your film out. So one of the things that we realize is that, frankly, most people are lazy. You know why I know? Because I'm lazy. And so one of the things that we try and do to distributors or programmers of film festivals or the press is we make it as easy as it can be for them. So we find out a magazine that we want to get into, and we sort of learn something about that magazine. And then we figure out how do we pitch our story to that magazine that they'll pick it up. If there's a distributor that we want to get it to, or some film festival, we learn a little bit about that film festival. What did they show last year, this and that. So when we go and talk to the distributor, we actually know what the hell we're talking about.
My ideal producer-director relationship is one that is just very much based on respect, respect for the director's idea and also respect for the producer's job. That, for example, a director can't say, hey, we got to have this by tomorrow, and then I have to go and create an emergency, it's an emergency situation, I'm running around. But it's a mutual respect for the job description of both parties. A director is supposed to sort of reach for the stars, dream of the greatest possible, thing they can imagine, and we're supposed to bring it to them at a low cost, or maybe talk them out of certain things that are just unnecessary and a waste of manpower and time. And they're supposed to talk us back into doing that. And then somewhere between these two things, it's kind of like a mom and a dad. You know, it's kind of like, I don't know whose parent is what, you know, for everyone, but it's like that one parent that just is like, you know, yeah, we can do everything, you know, we can go everywhere, you know, let's go to, you know, this Grand Canyon. And the other one's like, well, how much is that going to cost? And what are we going to do? You know, it's sort of this play between the practical side of your mind and the imaginative, adventurous side of your mind. The director is the imaginative, adventurous person, and the producer is the one that's really practical and living in the real world thinking, okay, so how are we going to do this?
Start with the content. Start with making the stuff.
Right.
You know, even make a video podcast, you know, or you know, series, or make a film or a short or whatever. Make the stuff, because we did actually have to catch up. We didn't really know what the hell we were doing with promoting ourselves and finding our audience directly. We realized that we were going to have to figure that out in the same way we realized, oh, you can't shoot in New York City unless you have a permit. Okay, well, we'll just do it guerrilla style. You know, same thing. We were met with problems that we had to solve in the same way we were met with problems that we had to solve making the film. So we've just solved them in any way that we could. We've said what's available, you know. In the same way we said DVX 100, that's a good way to get very film-looking thing.
But
we said MySpace exists, that's a good way to find your audience directly.
But filmmakers give up. A lot of filmmakers, they don't even think on that level. I'll be honest, like, I don't know if I would necessarily think that way, like, because I'm sort of coming from a background where it's like, I made the piece of art. Like, you know, like, I don't want to sit there and hustle myself and spam people, but it's like, you know, you kind of have to. You kind of just have to be, I mean, if you really care about what you're doing and you know that you have something good to share, then it's sort of your responsibility to share it. So yeah, it's your responsibility to figure out what you need to do for your particular product to, like, put it out. And it's like, if you don't do that, then you're not doing justice to your art.
And you know, fortunately / unfortunately, nobody else is really going to do that, because nobody cares as much about foreign monsters as we do.
Right.
A lot of these people are working in the industry, wrapping cable, you know, gaffers, editors, sound mixers, and they walk around with their feature in their back pocket because that's how it is. You have to, you know, it is possible to, along the path towards that master plan of directing your first film, whatever that may be, it is possible to make a living in this industry doing something else, technical, administrative, whatever it may be. You just have to stay focused, but you got to stay in that environment in order to reach that goal. So that's the hardest part, I think, for a lot of artists, not just filmmakers, but, you know, actors, you know, a lot of people in the fine arts. It's very hard to face that reality that, you know, it's, you know, maybe pushing a pencil, working a desk job, you know, though we never thought we'd actually, you know, have those words come out of our mouths. It's not such a bad thing.
People would much rather open their minds and hearts to the camera than to keep a secret. That's just human nature. And I think we have an enormous advantage in filming people when we consider that they would prefer to connect in an open fashion with the camera. Now, that doesn't work if the person doesn't trust the person who's being filmed, who is filming. The filming person must be of the kind who takes the responsibility to tell the truth, to care for the person that they're filming through a process of empathy. Without that empathy, there's no poetry, there's no beauty, there's no emotion that is going to come out on the screen.